Jim Romer from bestweatherinc.com. Welcome to viewers, traders, farmers all over the world. Let's talk about the grain market and why this is a pretty complicated situation for the rest of this summer. I've been pretty bearish corn and beans, catching most of this move down over the last 4 or 5 weeks. If you've been a Weather Wealth subscriber, you've known that I've disagreed with many forecasters about La Nina forming this summer and also all the hot, dry weather talk, which was nonsense 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. And we were lucky enough to catch about a 5 or 10% move down in corn and beans for clients to our newsletter. Things are changing though a little bit. Let's talk about the problems first for a bull market in grains. The outside markets, gold, crude, oil beginning to falter, but it's really the weather this time of year that's the main factor. Demand remains weak globally. As you know, China imports have been down more than 10% really for the last 6 months or so. That's why even in the face of some South American weather problems a few months ago, the grain market couldn't rally. Currently, U.S. corn and soybean conditions are the best in years. And it's really going to take extensive hot, dry weather to really get this market out of the doldrums, not just over 20 or 30% of the corn belt. Some rains this weekend. Look at the bottom left, not a lot, but some rains coming to the western corn belt Sunday evening or Monday. And also rains benefiting the central and eastern corn belt later next week. Charts still look bearish, and that's why it's difficult to say we're going to see any kind of 10 or 15% rally in grains anytime soon. Yes, we had a little bit of a rally early on this week, but it may not be enough given these bearish fundamentals. What is bullish for corn and beans right now? Western heat and corn belt dryness likely after some rains later this weekend, maybe into the month of August, about 30% of the belt. A big short position in grains right now. We've known that for a while. And it's going to be really up to the USDA to come up with their estimates. So possibly corn and bean acres were hurt by 1 million to 2 million acres. We don't know that for sure yet. But the flooding in late June and early July, excuse me, in parts of northern western Iowa, Minnesota, South Dakota, and Wisconsin could lower the acreage number, of course. Big short positions. That's why we talk of hot weather earlier this week. We saw some short covering, but the bottom line is we still have huge stocks and a good crop over most of the belt. But you can see that in black, the lowest or the biggest short position in corn and beans, really, in many, many years, at least 20, 25 years. And that resulted in short covering early on this week. Have the fundamentals really changed to bullish? Not necessarily. My corn spider was a -4 to -6, very bearish to very bearish for a month, is more neutral right now. What does a spider mean? How do you use this? My subscribers to my newsletter, Weather Wealth, get this for all ag commodities and natural gas. Each score goes from -4 to a +4. -4 very bearish, +4 very bullish. And when you add them all together, you have different total scores. Usually above +8, you go long futures. Above +4, you use long options. -4, long puts or short calls. -8, short futures. Right now, we're in a very volatile situation right now. The global crop score is really a -2, pretty bearish given the current situation. But dryness in the Ukraine has lowered their crop. And with some hot weather in August, I'm in a neutral category right now with the global crop score, anti-herd mentality. Too many people short the market means it's bullish. But if you add all these together, it's a little bit confusing right now. A lot of farmers want to know whether to hedge more of their crop. That's what we do in Weather Wealth. I'll be updating more forecast here, get a 2-week free trial period as we get into the month of August. So if we had to the left all this red and yellow like we did in 1983, 2011, 2022, if we had drought over the Midwest, that would be a different story. So look how good conditions are right now. In white, only the far eastern belt there in Ohio and a little part of Illinois and southeast Indiana and Kentucky have had some dryness. But notice the rain forecast over the next 10 to 15 days in this central to eastern belt, and that's why I cannot necessarily say we're going into a major bull market in corn and beans anytime soon. To find out more, again, get a 2-week free trial period, folks. One trade like in cocoa the last few months, short calls in corn and soybeans a month or so ago. Pays for the service for several years in a matter of a few weeks. Am I wrong sometimes? Yes. But I've been doing this for 40 years. I understand the psychology of the markets. I talk to farmers all over the world. And I not just give weather forecasts, I have my own in-house software, but I also give trading and hedging strategies. Here is, for those of you that don't know, the corn belt, obviously, and soybean belt. Heat, yes, in the western third of the belt. But the demand situation, 70% of the belt can have good condition probably through at least the beginning of August, is a problem. That's a problem. This may not be enough to warrant a major bull market. So what about spring wheat, oats, and canola? That dome does affect some of the spring wheat areas, but it's a little bit too late to really hurt the crop right now. Forecast there in parts of the northern plains in red, 25 to 50% normal rainfall up in the Canada the next 2 weeks. Could begin to affect some of the crops in Canada, but we'll discuss this here in a minute, why I don't necessarily expect a major bull market in spring wheat or oats as well. So there, 95% of the oat crop in the northern plains is headed. That means the heat and dryness coming up here the next few weeks will do little to really damage their crop. Last year's crop, 93%, 7% below trend line, but look at that to the left. This year, 6% above trend line, right? 106% of average. So if we were like 20 or 30% headed, if this would have happened 3 to 4 weeks ago, and we had a month of extreme heat and dryness, then I would have been bullish spring wheat and oats. There's a situation in Canada. Canola, which develops a little bit later as far as a production cycle than oats and spring wheat, could actually be affected in Canada. To the right, look at the dryness, about 30 to 40% normal rainfall the last couple months in some of the key canola areas. So that's where the heat and dryness may begin to affect the market and the crop. We have a big short position in canola, no volume obviously, but that could be one grain market that actually rallies here over the next few weeks. So longer term, right? If La Nina forms, I've been saying for a long time it may not until like after September and October. If La Nina forms and we have this drought in Ukraine, we could have a post-harvest, North American harvest, bull market later on this year into 2025 as the Ukraine crop comes down. Not a factor in the corn market right now, but could increase demand later on this year. So how do we get this dome in the Midwest, like 2007, the El Nino neutral situation? We had about a 10 to 15% rally in August in corn and beans. Global angular momentum, torque that represents along the equator, La Nina is actually forming. That is going negative right now, folks. But other factors like ocean temperatures are not suggesting La Nina. Look at how La Nina kind of goes back and forth. El Nino, La Nina. This is why I've been in the camp for 3 months that all these forecasts for La Nina forming by August or even July is bogus. Okay, here's the prediction for the next 3 weeks. That's going to create this volatility not only in the Western Corn Belt Plains Ridge, but also in the grain market. Complicated. You're going to use option strategies, strangles, straddles, things like that. All right, so that's pretty much my report. I hope you sign up for a free trial period to my newsletter. I've had clients all over the world we've been helping with second-guessing computer models with my own in-house software. Have a great weekend. Enjoy.